the thing that I would do if I was the Knicks is I would go to Phoenix and say, we have Mikal Bridges. You liked him when he was in Phoenix. You don't want Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant doesn't want to be there. We'll give you Bridges, and obviously probably something else, but for Durant.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Liam Barwick. This is another edition of Moving the Goalpost. First, you can follow us across social media. This podcast across social media at MTGPETB. You can follow the Empty the Bench Network across social media at ETB Network. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMart. You can follow Liam on Twitter at LiamMTGP. You can watch all Empty the Bench shows on youtube.com/ETB Network. You can listen to all Empty the Bench shows on etbpodcast.com. And you can listen to Moving the Goalposts wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure to like and subscribe. And this show is presented by Playback. Stay tuned for later in the show to find out more. All right. So, Knicks. First, we have to talk about the Knicks. I mean, we'll get around. We'll talk about all about the NBA playoffs. So we have to talk about the Knicks. They go up 3-1 in what feels like it almost feels like the ugliest 3-1 lead I've ever seen. I would say. But the good news is we're still up 3-1, and that's really all that counts. Is how I would put it. I guess there's been a lot of controversy in the last couple of games. In this past game, there's a lot of talk about the refs and things like that. I'm not one to blame the refs, and a lot of Knicks fans were doing that too after game 2 when they lost. I'm not big on blaming the refs when there's so much more you could have done as a team to be better. But yeah, there's a lot to get to with this game 4. I don't know what your reaction was exactly, but what I'll say is Towns was great when we needed him to be. He was hitting a whole lot of threes. He was lights out from behind the arc, and he was hitting threes that weren't even like good shots, but he was great. And you know what? I guess there's some silver lining in winning ugly, which is that it shows that a team is good situationally. And they're like, that's what, even though that they haven't looked great, and most Knicks fans didn't think that we would struggle against Detroit as badly as we did. I guess it's a good thing that we're able to just be good under the toughest situations.
Well, I don't know if it's as much that the Knicks are good situationally as Detroit is pretty bad situationally.
That's fair.
They were terrible. I mean, I don't know. I don't agree that Knicks fans thought didn't think we would struggle. I do think a lot of people thought this was going to be a tough series. A lot of people were picking the Pistons. I picked the Pistons beforehand. The Pistons did beat the Knicks all 4 games in the regular season. But, yeah, it's a 3-1. It's a 3-1 lead. They won by a total of 3 points over 2 games in Detroit. But they did win both games. The third game they won because of a 21-0 run. They trailed by double digits in 3 of the 4 games, they've trailed by double digits. But yeah, I mean, the reffing is not been good. I mean, well, I'll start with this. I thought that the Josh Hart play was obviously a foul. I think that you could agree with that as well. The Knicks got away with that. It was a foul. But there was a foul. There was a foul before then on the offensive rebound. The Pistons had fouled the Knicks. They didn't call. And the game beforehand, the Knicks could have lost because the clock operator started the clock too early. They tried to miss a free throw with 0.5 seconds left. So if if anyone touched the ball, the game would have been over. The clock was started early. I think it's hard to argue that wasn't intentional. But then also because of an awful rule, the Pistons had an inbound chance to win the game. The reffing has been all over the place, but at the same time, they weren't calling that, which I think we've talked about with consistency. They weren't calling that Tim Hardaway, Josh Hart play a foul for the entire game.
Right.
So they've called it close, and the Pistons are also a team that likes to play physical and likes the refs to let them play until affects them.
Right. Well, the thing is, and Salicata was talking about this, and he brought this up, but he was saying that this type of reffing, this style of reffing, overall helps the Pistons a lot more than it helps the Knicks. So to hyper focus on just that one play, and especially late in the game, first of all, it is no secret that the refs let a lot more go in the postseason than in the regular season. I mean, when people talk about the game changing, that's a huge part of it, which is that.
Which it should.
Right.
They should do, yeah.
They do let a lot more go. But like the thing is that like that style of reffing really does help the Pistons a lot more than it helps the Knicks. And everybody is ignoring that Josh Hart was fouled on that same play.
And how many with the NBA releasing the post-game report about that should have been a foul, how many times during the game were there also plays that should have been a foul?
Yeah, so, how come they only do it with that one play?
And the honest answer is the Pistons had an 11-point lead with 8 minutes left. And on the play that Tim Hardaway got fouled, they got an offensive rebound, but their best player had a shot to win the game and he missed. And so it didn't come down to just that. But situationally, the Pistons have been bad. And I will say this, I don't think that anything in this series, even if the Knicks win in 5, which I still think that this I'm still 50-50 on whether this is going to go 5 or 7. But if the Knicks win in 5, even nothing in my opinion has changed on the Knicks. I still think they're going to get destroyed by the Celtics. They've barely beaten a Pistons team that also has been missing their starting center for the last 3 games. And so nothing has changed. And, Cat has been better. Bridges has been atrocious. And Brunson is okay. I mean, I think it's also a fait of complete at this point that at some point Brunson is going to miss time with his ankle.
Yeah, that injury scare. I mean, I feel like they're kicking. It almost feels like the Knicks are kicking the can down the road with this, which, by the way, in the playoffs, you have no other option but to kick the can down the road. But but I feel like it's going to happen at some point. I feel like it's going to happen. I almost feel like the Knicks season this year might end similar to the way it ended last year. In that sense, which is like, Brunson hurts his ankle, and then I think like Knicks fans will be let down. I think we will most likely be let down fairly easy this year in the way that the season ends, a lot like last year.
Well, the upsetting thing about if they get a lot of injuries will be that if they get a lot of injuries and lose to the Celtics, a lot of people are saying, well, last year they would have beaten Indiana if they didn't have injuries, which is probably true. But this year, no matter whether the Knicks are healthy or injured, they're not beating the Celtics. So if they get injured, I feel like it would give them excuses that they were not. Whereas they're not going to beat the Celtics. They're not going to get close to the Celtics. And I think that is important because they're on a hamster wheel now where they've gone 3 straight years where they've lost in the second round. And if this happens, which it hasn't happened, but it will, but they have to make changes. And I think that one thing that we sort of talked about on a live stream, and I think you were sort of on my side, is the thing that I would do if I was the Knicks is I would go to Phoenix and say, we have Mikal Bridges. You liked him when he was in Phoenix. You don't want Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant doesn't want to be there. We'll give you Bridges, and obviously probably something else, but for Durant. And I think that's what the Knicks need to do.
The question, I agree completely, but you'd have to give up a lot more than Mikal Bridges, especially after he's played this year for Kevin Durant.
Well, I don't, but Phoenix is not in a good position either because Durant doesn't want to be there and they don't want him there. So Phoenix does not exactly have the prime. But the point is, the Knicks need another scorer, and they need,
which was supposed to be Mikal Bridges.
Which was supposed to be Mikal Bridges, and also Cat's been up and down. I mean, when he plays well, but he's been up and down. A massive loss. The biggest loss in the offseason was Hartenstein. And I don't blame them because the Knicks were never going to be able to pay what Oklahoma City paid. But it really shows, especially when Mitchell Robinson is off the court, especially in game 2, because the Knicks are too small. And remember, Isaiah Stewart is not even playing. Yeah. So the Knicks are small. But this does feel like it's Boston's conference to lose. Now I'll say that the Cavs are killing the Heat, but the Heat are also would not even have touched the play-in if they were in the West. They're a terrible team. So I don't really take too much stock in that. I still think it's Boston's conference to lose.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Cleveland were to beat Boston. I think it looks like in the East. I mean, honestly, I think the East is so much less interesting than the West. Like the West is like it's almost like a reality TV show in a sense. Like it really could just go in any different direction. Whereas the East, it's just sort of like, you have the Celtics and you have the Cavs and then everybody else. And like, yeah, the Knicks are okay, but everybody knows the Knicks are not as good as the Cavs and the Celtics. So it's really just going to come down to the Eastern Conference Finals. And we don't really know with the Cavs if they're even like, maybe they're one of those teams that's really built for the regular season and not the postseason. They could be one of those teams. In terms of like the Knicks expectations, I mean, unfortunately, I mean, I guess this is sort of obvious, but like the Knicks are closer to the Pistons than they are to the Cavs or the Celtics. Like, yeah, I think the Knicks are a better team than the Pistons, but they're closer to them than they are to the Celtics. Right. And everybody knows the Knicks are not good enough to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. I think they have a better shot at beating the Cavs in a 7-game series than the Celtics. I think the Celtics are just too good. And you're right. The only way like the Knicks will be competitive with the Celtics or with the Cavs is to get Kevin Durant, or to get some other guy, some other star. I feel like that's the only way. And the Knicks offense this year was really good, but another big problem was the defense. And you're talking about how we were too small. I mean, Mitchell Robinson played 9 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, his rotations have been bad, and I think that Dolan needs to take a lesson from the other team that he owns, because the Rangers were going to the conference finals. They went to the conference finals 3 out of the last 4 years, and they were in a hamster wheel, just like the Knicks are, getting eliminated in the same round, and they didn't make changes in the offseason. They said, well, we've gone to the conference finals 3 out of 4 years, and they didn't even make the playoffs this year. They took a gigantic step back. So he should also look at that and say, let's not just say, well, we're almost there. And we need to make a move in the offseason, because now the Rangers are sort of in shambles. You don't want the Knicks to go the same way. So, yeah, they're and I'm still, listen, I know that you're not going to agree with this, but I actually do think that Detroit is still very much in the series. I think if they win the next game, they'll go to 6. I think they're going to come out 5. First of all, they'll definitely push Isaiah Stewart to play. And they're going to be really upset about what happened. And I think that if they win at the Garden, then I think they'll win Game 6. And then Game 7 would be immense pressure on the Knicks at the Garden. So I still don't think Detroit's out of it. And I will say, if the Knicks are going to win this series as well, they have to win Game 5, because the Celtics are going to beat the Magic in 5. So already you're not as good as the Celtics, but you really don't want to have played 2 more games, 2 more days of travel with Brunson's bad ankle. They have to close out in Game 5.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And first of all, I think you're right about that. Like, I think on one hand, it is true that the Pistons are playing with all the house money. The Pistons have all the house money compared to the Knicks. The flip side is it is certainly possible that the Pistons are just so, I mean, given that this, like you were saying, this team is just bad, like they almost remind me of what USC football was. Like they're so close yet so far. They keep losing so many close games. It could be true that the Pistons are just so defeated by this that, they don't win Game 5. I guess that's the most optimistic way.
But I think a lot of people thought they were going to be so defeated by giving up a 21-0 run in the Game 1.
Sure.
And they came out and won. Now, again, that was a game also in Game 2, which the Detroit Pistons did every single thing they possibly could have done to give the Knicks the game. And the Knicks didn't take it, partly because Mikal Bridges missed 3 wide open threes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I also want to say I don't know where are the hockey fans, because this is the best. The NBA playoffs have been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah,
the NBA playoffs have been unbelievable in all rounds. Even the besides the Cavaliers Heat series, even the Oklahoma City Grizzlies series, the last 2 games were really close. and the Oklahoma City mounted a huge comeback. Every game has been pretty amazing.
And that wasn't even supposed to be a good series at all.
No, which is why the West is the best conference.
Well, by far. I mean, it's not even just the best in terms of its ability, but it's just better. It's more entertaining.
And the seeds don't matter. Like Golden State is the 7, but they're probably better than the Rockets. The Timberwolves are the 6. They're up 3-1 on the Lakers. The 4-5 series is unbelievable with the Denver and the Clippers.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the reason that with the Warriors is that like they ever since they acquired Jimmy Butler, they got so much better.
Yeah, but they won a game in the fourth quarter the other day where Butler didn't play in the game, but they were losing the entire game on Saturday night, and the Rockets kind of capitulated in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. No, you're right about it. Is an odd thing how fashionable it is to hate the NBA, and not that like there's never any criticisms of any league or anything like that. Like to me, when people criticize how everything, it's almost like when people were talking about college, like the college football playoff and blowouts and things like that. Like there's a certain level of ways of structuring the playoff to avoid blowouts and things like that or whatever. But the truth is, all sports is an entertainment product that is not scripted. So it can only be manipulated so much. I mean, even reality TV is very much easily manipulated. If you watch reality TV, it's obvious the producers set everything up, set up certain situations. You can't really do that in professional sports because it's a competition. There's very minimal things you can do. So obviously, every situation is just not going to be ideal when it comes to the product of sports. And it's just weird how like hockey, I guess, I don't know why hockey and basketball have become like these rival sports. Only because they play at the same time and have similar like seasons, I would say. But it's especially odd given that like it's mostly different people that watch those sports. I mean, some people watch both, but they're pretty far apart in terms of the viewers.
Yeah. But yeah, the series have been great, and obviously, and it was a bad time for hockey too because hockey doesn't have any major teams in the playoffs either. But major American teams at least. But yeah, the playoffs have just been terrific as a whole, and I think like one thing I think also like you were talking about the East, like the Cavs and the Heat and the Bucks and the Pacers, like I forgot those series were even happening.
Yeah.
Like, the East has been very forgettable, but you talk about like the West. I mean, the West was the Nuggets Clippers has been unbelievable. I've never seen an ending like that where the dunk went in. Aaron Gordon dunked the ball, and it left his hands on the dunk like the second the buzzer went off. It was like one of the more insane finishes I've ever seen. The Lakers Timberwolves series, the 2 games in Minnesota were terrific. I mean, the Minnesota ended up winning them, but they were both great games.
Yeah.
And like lost in everything because the Lakers are down 3-1. I mean, game 3, LeBron was sensational.
Yeah.
I mean, LeBron was unbelievable in game 3. And that's been a series. I mean, the biggest mistake, I think, obviously, was that JJ Redick played his starters the entire second half.
Yeah, JJ Redick almost pulled like a Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah, he played his starters the entire second half. But then that was another crazy game where I thought for the most of the fourth quarter that the Lakers were going to win it. But the problem is this: as good as Luka Doncic is on offense, that's as bad as he is on defense.
Yeah.
And he committed a foul, and the Lakers also committed a lot of stupid fouls. They committed fouls on layups and dunks continuously in the fourth quarter that gave Minnesota and ones. They were making a lot of stupid mistakes, and then there was the big play was that LeBron knocked the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands to give the Lakers. This is what I want to talk about because this is such a stupid rule, by the way. So LeBron knocks the ball out of Anthony Edwards' hands, and it clearly comes off of his knee. So there's 9 seconds left. The Lakers are down by 1, and they have the ball, so they call a timeout. But Minnesota challenged the play, and they reversed it and said that LeBron hit Anthony Edwards' hand. So it's a foul. So Minnesota is going to the line. The Lakers were still charged the timeout that they took when they thought it was their ball. So they had no timeouts, and they had to bring the ball up full court. That's ridiculous. Why are they still charged the timeout when it was supposed to be their ball, but now the call has been reversed? It's a completely different call. They should be restored the timeout that they took when they thought they were getting the ball with 9 seconds.
Right,
So
right.
they had no timeout, so they had to come up the court. And at the end of the day, Austin Reeves also had an open shot in the corner and he missed it. So that was not good. But Doncic was not good in game 3. He was good in game 4, and the Lakers weren't able to win. But Minnesota has been very good in the series, not just Anthony Edwards, but Jaden McDaniels has been terrific as well. So I almost think yes, the Lakers are getting criticized a lot because they're the Lakers, but I almost think it's more to do with Minnesota is just playing really well.
Yeah, and I think that it's a lot harder for people to understand. I think that a lot of sports fans are sort of unwilling to admit that a lot when it comes to sometimes rather than saying a team has been terrible, it's a lot easier to say this team is terrible rather than just giving the other team credit for being really good.
Yeah.
I think that's very true about the Warriors 3-1 lead, for instance, that they blew. It wasn't so much that the Warriors blew the 3-1 lead. It's more accurate to say the Cavs were just amazing coming back down from 3-1. I think it's a similar thing here, which is the Lakers haven't been bad. Anthony Edwards has been amazing.
And also lost in that because the Lakers lost game 4. Late in the game, the Timberwolves were starting to take momentum. They had a lead. The Lakers missed. They came down, and LeBron had a sensational block. That was, the fact that that's been lost. Nothing that LeBron has done the opposite of help. He's pushed his team to. He's done everything they can to win. LeBron's been unbelievable. So it got lost, but they've been terrific. And again, they had a weird start to the season. The Timberwolves, that's why they were the 6th seed. The Warriors had a weird start to the season, and then got Butler. That's why they're the 7. They're not a true 7 or a true 6.
Right.
And I kind of think also the Rockets kind of fall into the same category as the Pistons. The Rockets are a lot better than the Pistons, but they're a really young team who was bad last year. They're new to the playoffs. And I think that showed in the fourth quarter versus the very obviously extremely experienced Warriors.
Well, yeah, I think the experience matters a whole lot. In terms of the Lakers, it's not even like I said, it's not even like the team hasn't been good. They've been really good. The only problem is, I guess, the problem is, I guess I would say, is the depth. That's the biggest problem, or perceived lack of depth.
And you know who's been terrific? Who's been terrific on the defensive end? Julius Randle.
Yeah.
He's been defending really well.
I never thought I would see Julius Randle play this well in the playoffs.
No.
I never thought that.
No.
After our experiences with him as a Knick.
Yeah. But I think a lot of people also forget that the Timberwolves were, one game away from going to the finals last year? One series away. So
yeah,
they were one series away from going to the finals. So they are a good team, and they're not a true 6. And the Lakers also, a lot of people, it's also funny, a lot of the narrative was well, the Lakers are making this Luka trade for next year. They can't win for the next years. They can't win the title this year. And then just because they played some games, the difference between the 2 and the 7 was 2 games in the West.
Yeah.
So just because then the Lakers ended up with the 3, 1 game better, people were oh, they're going to win the title this year. When the fact is they were more of what that people said when the Luka Doncic trade first happened, a team that was doing it more for the future.
Yeah. Oh, obviously they were doing it for the future because Luka Doncic is young. But they could have, look, they could have won this year. They could have ended up getting past.
Still, they could still, they're not out of this series. Minnesota is going to have to play really well to win the series.
Yeah. Yeah. And they play, and a lot of these, so many of the games the Lakers lost. These games all could have, 2 out of the 3 games they lost could have gone either way.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the one game that could have gone either way, Minnesota shot a percentage that they'll never duplicate that. Probably they shot out of their minds. So
they shot 50. They went 21 for 42 from 3.
Right, which they're not going to do, probably ever again. So yeah, I think the Lakers are still in it, but there has been a lot of narrative change. But it's not. That's not going to be. That's not why the Lakers have not lost because they play bad.
Yeah, yeah, and I think a lot of LeBron haters are going to use this against LeBron, losing to the Timberwolves as if the Timberwolves aren't a good team, aren't a really good a really good team for a 6 seed, as if the West this year is just a gauntlet. Like it really is just a gauntlet.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. I don't think they're out of it. And if LeBron and Luka continue to play this way, I don't think they'll be out of it. I think
No.
the problem ultimately is that they just got tired at the end of the game. I think the Lakers,
especially LeBron's 40. Like
LeBron's 40, but it wasn't just him who was tired. Everybody was tired.
Right.
And they just made a lot of boneheaded decisions at the end of the game, whether it was the turnover on the inbound pass or the foul or the foul. But it was just. But look, that game could have gone either way against a really, really good Timberwolves team. And I don't think this hurts. Like LeBron haters are going to say it's going to hurt LeBron's legacy if he loses in the first round. I mean, like he's doing it at 40.
Michael Jordan was swept in the first round once, so let's.
Yeah, I don't. I think Mike. I think that LeBron haters believe in like a Michael Jordan that didn't exist.
Yeah.
They do have this impression of a Michael Jordan that just didn't exist. It's kind of fascinating to me. I do want to talk about the Nuggets going up 3-2 against the Clippers. What?
No, it's 2-2.
I'm sorry. Tied 2-2 against. Sorry, my bad. I meant to say I was anticipating.
Yeah, they might.
I was anticipating that the Nuggets were going to win Game 5.
Yeah, it's 2-2.
Well, on an Aaron Gordon play that I will have to say it was the closest buzzer beater I've ever seen. I don't know if you thought that it was actually the right call or not. It was as close. I've never seen anything that close because it's especially hard with a dunk. Like when it comes to if it was a jump shot, it would probably be easier because it's a lot easier to see the exact moment the ball leaves the hand. But when it comes to a dunk from that kind of angle,
it was crazy. Impossible. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was crazy for a couple reasons. First of all, there was a fight earlier in the game where a lot of Clippers fans and Clippers thought that Aaron Gordon should have been thrown out of the game. And they decided not to throw him out of the game. But yeah, it was the closest thing I've ever seen. I mean, it was an air ball by Jokic. It was probably the best air ball ever shot because it was good up. And then also no one on the Clippers covered Aaron Gordon at all. And he had free reign to the hoop. He made a dunk and it went through. It was, the closest I've ever seen it. I mean, the fact that right now, honestly, the fact that it's 2-2 is amazing. I mean, the Nuggets are legitimately 2 shots. Clippers made 2 more shots away from having been swept. They were one shot, they were a couple of shots away from losing Game 1. They probably should have lost Game 1. They ended up winning it. This one, they were down for a while. They got beat, or they looked like they were getting beat, and they come back to it. So the Nuggets have kind of been fortunate to win the 2 games, but this has been the best series of all of them, I think. I think the Knicks Pistons is up there, but this has been the best series.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think this is on a clear collision course to go 7 games too.
I think it's going to go 7 games, and I think it's probably going to be a really good 7 games.
And we forget, by the way, people forget because he's been injured, because whatever. I mean, when he's on, I think that you can make the argument that Kawhi is the best player in the NBA. When he's in his zone, he's unbelievable. He's really hard to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think that Kawhi is one of those. He's really, really good situationally, is how I would put it. He's really good situationally. He's really good in the playoffs when it matters. I mean, the obvious issue is you have to look at the whole thing and see, like, he's not consistent enough anymore in terms of actually playing.
Right.
He's injured too much. But yeah, I would say I think I actually don't disagree with that at all. That if he's at his best, I mean, I suppose you could say that about a lot of players too, though. I suppose when Steph Curry's at his best, you can argue.
Yeah, but a lot of people regard Steph Curry as one of the best. I feel like Kawhi isn't regarded as well because he's had a lot of injuries. Like he's not on the tip of the tongue when you're ranking the best players.
Yeah, that's true.
Steph Curry definitely always is.
I mean, Steph Curry is ranked as one of the best players of all time.
Right. Which he is. But yeah.
Which he is. Kawhi is not normally thought of that way. I mean, Kawhi he just had a lot of, I mean, he was probably thought of as one of the best players in the NBA a lot more when he was still in the Spurs.
Yeah, or the Raptors run too, but yeah,
Yeah, maybe the Raptors run too.
yeah,
But not so much in the past, say more like in the 2010s, not in the 2020s. Once the 2020s came along, his reputation hasn't been the same since.
right,
He's also just kind of like boring in a
yeah,
sense. Like Steph Curry is fun to watch.
right,
He's
of
just so
course,
entertaining. Kawhi Leonard is just like his whole personality, his
absolutely,
game is a lot more boring
yeah,
is than somebody like Steph Curry, which also I think has a lot to do with it.
yeah, agreed.
Um, but I mean, he's certainly a guy I'd want to have on my team. Uh,
Mhm.
and he is just one of those guys that is just disproportionately better in the playoffs. He's like the opposite of like a Harden or something
Yeah,
who has a reputation for completely flailing when it matters. Um, but that doesn't mean. I mean, I don't know. I guess I kind of would like to see Harden, get on a good
yeah,
playoff run.
absolutely, yeah,
I would like to see that. And Harden is actually fun to watch. He's one of the best offensive players I've ever seen. Not great on defense, but one
right,
of the best
exactly.
offensive players I've ever seen.
Mhm.
Um, some more NBA news in the East. Damian Lillard apparently tore his Achilles um, against the Pacers. You were talking about how we forgot about this matchup. I mean, it was just I watched this game last night and I ended up turning it off because it was just like a 20-point lead.
Yeah,
It
yeah, this
just
is
wasn't even
over.
close.
Yeah, it's over now.
It
There we
feels
go.
over.
So it's over now, and this is, it's another guy that, would the Knicks be willing to give up Towns for, Giannis maybe? It's another situation that just feels like the Bucks are going to blow it up now. I don't see Giannis staying on the Bucks very long.
I don't either.
But yeah, they just feel like a team that's out of it. They won their championship. Honestly, since they fired Mike Budenholzer, excuse me, it's kind of been really downhill since then.
Yeah, yeah. This new trend of like firing these head coaches who just it was what 2 years after they won the NBA finals
Mhm.
that he was fired. Like,
Yeah,
I don't understand why this is becoming a thing. It seems like a lot of it is just player driven.
yeah,
The same reason they fired Adrian Griffin, but they would have been better off just keeping Mike Budenholzer just 2 years after he won the NBA Finals. What I will say is about this weird trend of NBA coaches being fired so soon is like I think that other teams will see that maybe as a cautionary tale of like, all right, maybe we shouldn't do that because look at all the teams that have done this and where they ended up.
yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess, but it's sort of still going on. But yeah, I just think that the Bucks are a team. They're just finished. They're not, and they spent a few good years in the conversations of the best teams in the East, and they're not even anymore. So
No, I mean, and this team they won the NBA Finals, and they just acquired Damian Lillard this past offseason,
mhm.
and now they're already out of it. Like you would think that getting Lillard would at least like help them a lot more.
Yeah,
But I mean, do you think that there is a shot that Giannis could go to the Knicks?
yeah, but I do think they'd probably have to give up Carl Anthony Towns, which I would do, but still, I think they
Yeah,
would.
I mean, in a weird way, I like the prospects of getting Durant a lot better.
Yeah, I agree.
I think the likelihood is much higher. I feel like we wouldn't have to give up quite as much,
Yeah, I
possibly.
agree.
But with Durant, if the Knicks were to get Durant, I think that they would probably be able to compete with Cleveland and Boston. Uh, it would. I mean, it would obviously make us a lot better.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but I guess something like that is what needs to happen. But you know what?
Certainly we need that off.
Yeah, I think Leon Rose. I guess the best thing James Dolan did for the Knicks and for the Rangers is he stopped managing them.
Mhm.
Is how I would put it. Like
Yeah,
the best thing he could have done for either of these
yeah,
teams was to just stop managing them
yeah. Agreed.
because he's so incompetent. And I mean, he stopped. He did it with the Rangers first, but uh, then with the Knicks. Okay, so I do want to talk about the NFL draft. First, we have to talk about the big story. Shedeur Sanders ended up dropping to the fifth round. I mean, I'm not the first person to say this, but this is the biggest drop I've ever seen. I mean, when you look at like the biggest drops in history, either ones that we can remember or the ones before we were born, like Dan Marino dropped a lot because of rumors of him smoking marijuana. This was in the 1980s, so it was a big deal back then. And a lot of people were saying that Don Shula started those rumors, which he probably did. Aaron Rodgers dropped a little bit because he was viewed as arrogant. And we see all sorts of stories of quarterbacks like dropping sometimes for sort of silly reasons. Like NFL GMs they're a lot more particular than they are in, say, baseball or basketball. Like they're often almost like there's just so many weird idiosyncrasies about football. But in this case, Shedeur Sanders, nobody would have ever like, imagine if somebody had told you Shedeur Sanders is not going to get drafted to the 5th round. Like nobody would have even ever thought that. Like I've never seen a guy who was talked about as a potential 3rd pick in the draft drop all the way down to the 5th round. I've never actually seen that before. And like the odd thing is that like he ended up with Cleveland, where he would have ended up in the same exact position if he had just been if he had been the number 2 pick in the draft. I know the Browns traded back, but like there's a good chance it certainly would have been possible for Cleveland to just draft him 2nd, as opposed to like him going all the way down to the 5th round. He ended up in the same spot that he could have ended up in, except there's just a bigger story behind it now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he was. I do think that if his name was Shedeur Smith, he would not have been touted as anywhere near the top 3 with his talent. I didn't think that he was a 1st-round quarterback, but yeah, it was surprising, and it was surprising how many quarterbacks went before him, including the team that drafted him took a quarterback before him.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was surprising, but I mean, I do think that it had more to do with the 3 games that they played of any substance last year with the defense that had any substance, he was awful. I don't know if he was, he was never, I don't think, 1st-round material. I just don't think that. But I was surprised how far he went, and whether that had to do with a lot of things, we don't really know. But I was surprised how far he went, but I don't think that he was as good as people says. I mean, Mel Kiper was about to cry on TV. It was very odd.
What the fuck is with these ESPN guys? They might as well be on his payroll.
Well, I think I do think that these guys are sort of paid by agents and stuff. Adam Schefter is clearly kind of helped by agents, but yeah, I don't know. It was odd. But I don't think that any team really made a big mistake not taking him. Now he'll have a lot of, fuel to his fire when he gets into the NFL, but I don't know how good he really is. And I do think he was helped out by his name in terms of prospect ranking. And then I think he was also hurt by it too, because like there was an interview with, I think it was with Tamron Hall, where Deion Sanders said that if Shedeur got taken by the wrong team, he would intervene, and a lot of stuff like that, where they were like, well, maybe if we're on the fence, we're not going to take him. But I don't think that he was ever 1st-round talent. And I also do think there was a lot of teams this year that just weren't in the market for a quarterback. There were only a couple of teams that really were in the market for a quarterback, to be honest. And a lot of teams also are looking at next year and saying, well, if we're not going to get Cam Ward, then let's just wait until next year.
Yeah.
Because next year will be a heavier quarterback draft.
I mean, we say that now. We don't really know. I mean, yes, it probably will be. Although teams that do say that a lot of times might not be able to get the actual best quarterbacks. Like, I just don't think that's a very winning strategy when it comes to getting the best quarterbacks if we're just going to get him next year. But you're right. A lot of the teams that didn't draft him just weren't in the market for a quarterback, and there was no real reason for them to draft him.
Right.
And
you said he would have been in the same position if the Browns had taken him at 2. But so the Browns are in the same position with also having been able to take 5 guys ahead of it,
Yeah.
So the Browns are in the same position. I didn't sort of understand why they would have drafted Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, but they have 5 after they just signed Joe Flacco as well. They have 5 quarterbacks. So
yeah, like what is the Browns' game plan?
Probably none, but
Do they have one at all? Like now they have 5 quarterbacks. Like what even would be the point?
Yeah.
What even would be the point of that? Of having 5 quarterbacks. They drafting Shedeur Sanders after they already took Dylan Gabriel doesn't even really make any sense. If anything, the one team, like the teams that I thought maybe would take him would be a team like the Raiders. I could have seen the Raiders taking Shedeur Sanders. I thought that would have made a bit more sense. Even potentially the Steelers, I could have seen taking Shedeur Sanders. But knowing the way the Steelers are as an organization, I could see why they would want to stay away from Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, but who the Steelers are going to hike the ball to nobody this year? I don't know what.
Yeah. Well, I think they still want to get Aaron Rodgers, but maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Which is another, like, I mean, not to get too into the weeds here, but like, it's another thing, like with the disaster that happened at the Jets, one of the things that led up to that was like he was really stringing the Jets along. If you remember, like he went to the darkness retreat and stuff like this. He's kind of doing the same thing. Like I almost wouldn't even want him at that point where it was like he needs to just give an answer, honestly.
Yeah, at some point he has to give an answer. And a lot of like Jet fans hate Aaron Rodgers for quote unquote holding the team hostage, but not for nothing. The Jets didn't have to let him do the Jets didn't have to do that. They didn't have to let him hold the team hostage or let him make all those decisions. They could have just put their foot down and said, you're not making this decision.
Of course. Yeah.
Like they could have just done that. So I don't really blame Aaron Rodgers for that. Like I blame the team a lot more for that. In terms of like, not to get too much about Aaron Rodgers, but like, I mean, it's been a long time. Like how quickly did it take Russell Wilson to just say, I'm going to go to the Giants?
Right.
How long did any of that take?
Yeah. A lot less. Yeah.
But yeah, I overall, I think that would have made a lot more sense. But the Browns taking him when they have 5 quarterbacks on their roster, I don't really know what they were thinking. I guess maybe their thought process was, well, none of them are really that good. I mean, given that they have Joe Flacco, their thought process was probably only with quarterbacks where they were like, all right, we have Deshaun Watson, who sucked last year. We have Joe Flacco, who might be good, but he's 40 years old. We have Kenny Pickett, who's probably not that good, probably a first-round bust. And then they were like, all right, we're going to draft 2 quarterbacks just in case one of them turns out to be a bust. Like that's probably what their thought process was. I'm not saying it's a smart strategy, but it was not. But that's probably what their thought process was. You were talking about how Shedeur Sanders was helped by his name. Overall, though, I mean, he was helped by his name a little bit when it came to how highly he was expected to get drafted. But I also think overall he was hurt by his name a lot more than he was helped by his name. I think that Deion Sanders has become a professional sports version of like the Little League parent that nobody wants to deal with. And the thing with Shedeur Sanders is that the thing with him that which makes him unique in a sense, is that he's never been coached by anybody except his father. Like that's that's kind of the thing. And there's been a lot of quote unquote character concerns about a lot of quarterbacks, certainly in my lifetime. I mean, but a lot of them have been but most of those quarterbacks ended up going in the first round, or some of them have even been number 1 picks. Right. I mean, Jameis Winston and Baker Mayfield were number 1 picks. I mean, Jameis Winston had an incident when he was at Florida State every week. Every week there was a new incident. When he was at Florida State, and there were all sorts of problems. I mean, Johnny Manziel had all sorts of scandals when he was in college, and he was still a first-round pick. And you know, none of those things made any of those quarterbacks drop as far as like to the 5th round, even not in the first round. So so to me with Shedeur Sanders, it was just something different. That was the issue in a sense. And by the way, Shedeur Sanders never really had any scandals when he was in college. When he was in college, he was not a Johnny Manziel or a Jameis Winston or anything like that. There were no scandals when he was in college. So it's not even like that. He wasn't even like a Baker Mayfield who had some like maybe minor controversies at best when he was in college. But he came across to these, according to the scouts, he came across as arrogant, dismissive, and just sort of entitled in the interviews, apparently. Like, I wasn't there. I don't know exactly what happened, but a few anonymous sources have said that. And it seems like that's kind of what did it, because in these pre-draft interviews, he must have come across as terrible. And that's probably the biggest reason why. I mean, it's not the only reason, but you know what? If he had just come across as, mildly humble and apparently I've heard that apparently he was given a playbook to read and he just didn't read it before the pre-draft interviews. Like, obviously that's going to hurt him a lot. If he had just come across as slightly humble and prepared for these interviews, chances are that doesn't happen. Like, chances are in that case, he doesn't drop to the 5th round. So to me, I don't really think he has anybody to blame but himself. But the other thing is that, like, in today's era of like NIL, players have their own their own individual brands.
Mhm.
Like, and Shedeur Sanders is like his own individual brand. He has the podcast called Too Legendary. I mean, like, not for nothing, you were just a college quarterback. You never played in the pros, and you're calling yourself legendary. It is a little bit of an odd thing, and I think a lot of teams just don't like that type of thing. I'm not saying that's the only reason why. He could have, even with his podcast that he calls Too Legendary, he could have ended up being a first-round pick. But that obviously does rub teams the wrong way. And the other thing is, like, the other thing with Deion Sanders is that, like, I feel like Deion Sanders as a head coach is all about, like, accountability for his players. He's one of the, like, I think he's a very regimented head coach, but in a weird way, the way he coaches his son is a way it's almost like him coaching his son in a way is like he's being a coach that he wouldn't want his own son to play for, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, he's teaching him all of this stuff. He's kind of like what he should do is teach his son to be a lot more humble. I think he should show him to be more humble because he hasn't really done anything yet. I mean, he was very good. He was a good college quarterback, but he hasn't really done anything yet. So don't go into the process of job interviews almost like feeling almost above the job in a sense. It's almost like what he did.
Yeah, I guess we'll never know what the real reason was, but I did think it was possible he didn't get drafted at one point. So the fact they did was, I guess, good in the end.
Yeah. Well, even if he didn't get drafted, he still could have ended up on an NFL team. But, like, just the whole thing of, like, him setting up the whole party for himself and then and then just sitting there for 3 days when you were expected to be like a top 10 pick, it just makes him look kind of like a clown. I don't know if you saw the Shedeur Sanders prank call.
Yeah.
Or heard about it. He was prank called by Jeff Ulbricht's son.
Mm-hmm.
He was prank called by Jeff Ulbricht's son, who was, as we all know, the interim head coach of the Jets last season. And there was I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's just a prank call. But it, like, to me, it's just, I mean, how did he get his contact information to Jeff Ulbricht out?
Yeah, I have no clue. That was odd. It was terrible to do, but yeah, I question that too. How he got the number, it was very odd.
It was probably it was probably by accident, but I mean, like I don't think Jeff Ulbricht facilitated it or anything like that. We do want to talk about our teams. The Jets drafted Armand Membou, the offensive lineman from Missouri, in the first round. I didn't love this pick. I would have preferred it if the Jets had taken Tyler Warren. I'm surprised Tyler Warren dropped as low as he did. I mean, speaking of, the Bears, what were they thinking taking Colston Loveland instead of Tyler Warren? I would have easily preferred Tyler Warren over Colston Loveland. If you're in need of a tight end.
Yeah, I didn't like the pick at not picking Warren either. I thought that's where they should have went. I mean, you do need an offensive tackle, but yeah, I didn't love this pick at all.
I mean, this feels like a lot like the Jets taking Olu Fashanu instead of Brock Bowers all over again.
Yeah,
that's kind of what it feels like. And look where Brock Bowers is now. So that's sort of what it feels like. I do want to get your thoughts on the Giants drafting Jackson Dart. If you listen to Boomer and Gio really hates this pick. By the way, Gio hates this pick for the silliest reason. It's because he went to the same high school as Zach Wilson.
Yeah. Well, first of all, Gio's not a Giant fan, so I don't,
I'm just saying.
Calm down. I know. I'm just saying though. He doesn't like the pick, but he's whatever. But, I liked it a lot. First of all, I liked that people who were like, well, you could have got him in the second round. First of all, the reason they took him in the first round was because then they get the 5th year, because of the first round pick, 5th year option. Yeah. Then this second biggest, I liked it a lot. Listen, they need a quarterback. You're going to get a quarterback that you are going to sit for a year, or you hope are going to sit for a year. If they see Jackson Dart next year, that's a terrible thing. But if you think you're going to sit him for a year, you have Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. I liked this a lot. I think obviously their first pick was terrific. I don't like the Abdul Carter thing is nuts. The fact that he asked Lawrence Taylor for his number is fucking ridiculous.
Yeah, what the fuck was he thinking? Fake when I saw that story at first. He asked him for number 56.
That literally, like, this. I think this is like comparable to the franchises. That would literally be like if a guy like if Anthony Volpe had gotten drafted to the Yankees and it asked Derek Jeter for number 2. That's legitimately what it's like. Like, that's how impactful Lawrence Taylor was to the Giants. That was insane. But especially like, and I mean, he obviously, like, the number that he wore in college is also retired by the Giants. But still, that was insane to ask them. And the Giants just had a controversy last year where they gave a retired number to a player. So they had just had that controversy. But that was odd. But I thought that the pick of Carter was great. And I think that going to get Dart, they didn't give up much to get to that pick. It was a bit of a reach maybe to take him in the first round, but not that much of a reach. And that was good. I thought the Giants had the best draft, honestly. I thought the fact that, maybe obviously I might be a little biased, but the fact that they got Scadaboo in the 4th round, I thought was a terrific pick. I think he'll be a great short yardage back for them. Obviously he was a terrific college back. So I thought the Giants, in my opinion, had the best draft maybe in the whole league. I thought they did terrific. And they really have established something. I mean, they are the problem is they have a really tough schedule next year, but if you look at it in the year after, they're going to probably have one of, if not one of the probably the top 5 defensive lines in all of football. And they're going to be a lot more dangerous than they were last year. They have a bear of a schedule, which is just, we've talked about this on the show before, which is tough, but I think the Giants have significantly improved.
Yeah. I agree completely. I think the Giants had a really good draft. I don't think this was such a bad pick. I think that a lot of people first of all, Giant fans or New York sports fans in general probably watch college football less than almost any other, cities fans other than maybe Boston or Philly. So I think that most Giant fans or most New York sports fans who hate this pick don't know what they're talking about. I'm not saying it's an amazing pick. I don't know how good he's going to be, but what I can tell you is he was one of the best quarterbacks in college. One of the best, probably the third best SEC quarterback.
And he's playing, Cam Ward is clearly better than Jackson Dart, but he's playing when you look at Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, who were 2 guys that were talked about, both of those quarterbacks are playing with in conferences with significantly worse defenses than the SEC. I mean, Jackson Dart's playing in the best defensive conference, second best, I guess, but one of the best defensive conferences in the country.
One of the top 2 best defensive conferences.
Yes, it's either them or the Big Ten, but he has done it, and he's played much better against good teams than Shedeur Sanders or even Cam Ward. I mean, Cam Ward lost to Syracuse last year. That blew their playoff chances. So I really like this pick. And like you said, a lot of people who don't know anything, like I sent you a video the other day of someone saying that Shedeur Sanders was 3 times more pro ready than Jackson Dart, which is just,
what is that based
on? Based on not watching football. I mean, how much Gio has probably not watched 1 second of SEC football, to be honest.
No.
So but he is good, and he does have a lot of Josh Allen sort of attributes to him. And I'm interested to see what Daboll is going to do with him if Daboll gets the chance to coach him as a starter, which we don't know yet. But I do think the Giants have done significantly well, and I think that what we were talking about earlier, by the way, when you were talking about you don't like the strategy of, well, next year's a quarterback heavy draft. I mean, the Jets essentially did that because the Jets could have taken Shedeur, they could have taken Jackson Dart, they could have taken Shuck, and they ended up going offensive tackle. So they're sticking with Justin Fields, which is, I mean, I don't know how I would feel if I were you, because I like that strategy, and you can't rebuild in one day, but I feel like it's also tough to say to a fan base. I mean, I know that they went all in a couple of years ago with Rodgers, but I feel like it's tough to say to a fan base, well, we're just got to, be patient. We're building when you have the longest drought of playoffs in all of North America.
We can't be patient. We can't be patient that much longer. They haven't been in the play. It's been like half my life since they've been in the playoffs. Like, that's how long it's been. Like, no fan base could really be more patient than Jet fans. Like, we've been as patient as we could have been.
The Giants, who are a joke and a laughing stock of the league, have won a Super Bowl more recently than the Jets have made the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, that's insane. So I think that it's tough for them, but they are kind of doing that. I mean, the Jets didn't do anything that is going to – I mean, Membou is a good player, but I don't think the Jets really did anything that's going to push them to be winners in their division. And the problem with that also is the Patriots, I think they kind of might have missed a down period of the Patriots too. I think the Patriots are going to get better. The Bills might be going down, but they're still, as long as the Bills have Josh Allen, I think they'll still be, in my opinion, the favorites to win the division. But yeah, I think that the Jets didn't do anything that really push them to be winners. I think the Jets are probably going to win about 5-6 games next year.
Yeah, well, I guess, okay, there's a few things there. I think the difference between the Jets and the Giants in terms of that strategy of getting the quarterback, that I think there's a greater chance that would actually work for the Jets than for the Giants. Because I think the Giants might actually be too good next year for that to happen, given their quarterback situation.
Well, the Giants are coach and GM are in a world of a different position than the Jets coach and GM who just got there.
Right.
And the Giants, but the Giants, I feel like the Giants are probably next year are probably going to remind me of the Jets the year that year that Rodgers got injured. Like, I think the Giants are going to have a really good defense, but really not much of an offense. But yeah, I mean, but I'm concerned about the Jets just kind of maybe like more like wasting the potential of Sauce and Garrett Wilson as well, though, if they just continue to lose.
Well, the thing is, Sauce had a terrible year last year. He got
we don't know what he's going to be.
Yeah, we don't know what he's going to be. But also the thing with Sauce is that like what people have to understand about NFL defense, about defenses and football, is that like defensive backs only cover wide receivers for really short amounts of time. It's only for a couple of seconds. And when your fronts and when your pass rush is as bad as the Jets was this past season, it's kind of hard for the secondary to which I think is also, I'm not making excuses for him, but like that was also a huge part of the problem with the Jets. I mean, look, I agree though that the strategy of wait until next year, because there's going to be a better quarterback class. You don't know how bad. First of all, as much as you can overestimate how good you're going to be, you can also overestimate how bad you're going to be. Yeah. And there's likely going to be a team that's like going to be worse than the Jets. So you might don't think you're going to get Arch Manning next year. And you know what? I think they did. I think they probably might end up regretting not drafting a quarterback.
The thing that doesn't make sense to me about the Jets is I think last year most people would agree that they made a mistake firing Robert Saleh. And not that they made a mistake firing, but they made a mistake firing him when they did. Mm-hmm. And if Ulbrich, who clearly coaches as well as he parents, was not the head coach, like I think a lot of people would agree that the Jets probably they won 6 games last year? Did they win 6? Yeah. They probably would have won 9 with a real coach if you look at a lot of their games. So the thing that I don't understand is it felt like if the Jets had had a real coach and if Saleh had stayed, they would have had a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. And the thing I don't understand about that is you go out in that and you get Aaron Glenn, which I think was a very good decision. But then you get rid – I understand there was a lot of more nuance to it, but then you get rid of your quarterback. So I thought I didn't like that plan.
Well, I think Aaron Glenn got rid of him essentially.
Right, but I felt like if they had Aaron Glenn coached well with Aaron Rodgers, they would still be a good team. I mean, we might have went into New York City might have went into an Aaron overload with Aaron Boone, Aaron Judge, Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Rodgers, but I still think that they kind of made a mistake. I mean,
you're saying they made a mistake moving on from Rodgers.
Yeah, because
I agree. I've been saying that it's not a popular opinion. We agree.
And the thing is that they're blowing everything up. Frankly, the Jets and the Giants recently, but the Giants not so much. But frankly, the Jets also have a history of not a very long leash at coach.
Yes.
So the fact that Aaron Glenn now, I feel like I think that they're essentially, like we just talked about, maybe they won't be as bad to get Arch Manning, but they are kind of punting on this season.
Yeah.
And now then he's going to get another quarterback. Will they, how will they do with that? And so I think that he also takes his own job. I mean, if they win 3 games next year and then they get another quarterback and they win 3 games the next year, I don't know what his job security will be. So I never liked that idea. And especially when you have a terrific talent at wide receiver and a terrific talent. I know he didn't have a good year, but Sauce is a terrific defensive player. And I also think that the defense was very harmed by losing the defensive coordinator last year, 5 games into the season.
A defensive coordinator who can't head coach for his life. There actually, I do want to talk about this briefly. There was this argument with these radio guys in Buffalo, Brandon Beane, who is the GM of the Bills. It was about wide receivers. I have the audio right here.
It was. I was just listening to the last few minutes of your show before I came on, waiting on here.
All right.
Sounds like 2018 all over with you guys.
Well, how so?
Well, you guys were bitching in 2018 about Josh Allen. You guys wanted Josh Rosen, and now you guys are bitching that we don't have a receiver. I don't get it. Like, we just hold on, let me talk. We just scored 30 points in a row for 8 straight games. A year ago, I get you guys asking why we didn't have receivers, but I don't understand it now. You just saw us lead the league in points when you add all the postseason. No one scored more points than the Buffalo Bills, including the Super Bowl champions. So you just saw us do it without Stephon Diggs, same group. How is this group not better than last year's group? Our job is to score points and win games. Where do we need to get better? Defense. We did that. So I get it. You got to have a show and you got to have something to bitch about, but bitching about wide receiver is one of the dumbest arguments I've heard.
Okay.
All right. So, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say impossible for me to be more on the side of the GM of the Bills. I think everything he said was correct there. And also, you have no if you're a radio host who had the take that pitch that they picked Josh Allen over Josh Rosen, you have no credibility to make any take of a pick ever.
Yeah, I very much agree with that. If you I think that's very much true. Although I will say, I think that I don't think that GMs or owners or whoever being very feisty in radio interviews with radio people is a good strategy. It's just like he should have, instead of being that aggressive, he should have just sort of pointed all that out and he wouldn't have looked as bad, because I think that people are often not on the side of, say, GMs and owners, even though what he's saying is 100% correct. If he had just said it just casually, hey, you guys wanted Josh Rosen instead of Josh Allen.
Yeah. I mean, and he's completely right. Like, for instance, with Stephon Diggs, They lost a great receiver talent-wise, but they also might have cut out a cancer in the locker room when they got rid of Stephon Diggs. And they were great last year. And he was right about defense. And the fact of the matter is the Buffalo Bills have not won the Super Bowl in this era with this team because they're going up against one of the best teams in the history.
They're going up against the new Patriots. Basically.
Exactly. So this iteration of the Bills has gotten so close to winning a Super Bowl. They've gotten so close to beating the Chiefs. I mean, half of the NFL rules this year are because of the Chiefs beating the Bills. Every time the Chiefs beat the Bills, there's another NFL rule. So they have though, but the measuring sticks and the not getting the ball are why they didn't go to the Super Bowl. They've been a very good team. They have a great quarterback, and I completely agree. When you have Josh Allen, he's going to make the receivers around him great. He just is. And so I agree that you need to go defense. But I do agree with that. I also think, though, there's a lot of shows. Felger and Maz is one of them. Boomer and Carton sort of was in New York. Carton and Roberts kind of was in New York, where, like, one of the main goals of the show is kind of to, like, entice listeners by criticizing the teams. Like the Felger Maz always criticized the Patriots, even when they were like winning all the Super Bowls. Yeah. They were saying a lot of bad stuff, and it created so much buzz. Like people would listen to them because they hated them. And Craig Carton is sort of the same way with the Mets. When he was on Carton and Roberts, he would always criticize the Mets, even when they were winning 100 games.
He's like that a little bit now on TV, just in different ways.
Right, so I don't know how much of this the Bills host was actual that, or is it more like enticing to listen to? I mean, but yeah, he was right, and I agree. But it also does like create that stir. I mean, the radio host would want nothing more than the GM. If the GM had come on and just said, "Well, this is why we went defense," no one would even know that the interview happened.
Yeah, that's true. So it's better for the radio host, even though he's getting destroyed.
Those places like it, but. Yeah, I agree with him. I mean, and the Bills have. I mean, people forget how the Bills were atrocious, like throughout our childhoods. I mean, they were atrocious. Like they were really bad. So I think he's.
Remember when EJ Manuel was their quarterback?
Yeah, Ryan Fitzpatrick was their quarterback at one point.
I do remember when they beat the Jets with Rex Ryan.
And Ryan Fitzpatrick was the Jets quarterback that year.
Yeah, and Ryan Fitzpatrick was the Jets quarterback. I was watching at your house, and I would have broken something if I was in my own house.
And that was just to put that the Jets needed to win to get in the playoffs, and the Bills were like 3-12.
Yeah,
but their GM has done terrific. I mean, honestly, partly because of Part of My Take. Part of My Take was like the first people that really were pushing for Josh Allen to get drafted. He wasn't seen as a high recruit. I mean, Sam Darnold was taken before him. Baker Mayfield obviously was taken before him. Rosen was taken before him, I believe.
Who was?
Josh Rosen was drafted before him, I think.
No, I think Allen was drafted first. I could be wrong about that, but I think
the point is he wasn't like this great prospect, and he's completely turned around the franchise. So they've done well to do that, but I don't know how much of these radio hits actually hit. I mean, the Geo thing was over the top. Where he was like screaming, he's a Utah slapper. Like he was just screaming about this, and that. I mean, it was over the top, and I don't know how much of that is.
Do you think it was real?
No, because when I
say real, like, do you think it was staged?
Which one, the Geo one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was fake. I think he was completely first of all, he knows nothing about anything. In terms of college football. And secondly, he's a Minnesota Vikings fan. So why would he be that upset about who the Giants drafted?
Well, what I can tell you is I do know for a fact that a lot of calls at radio stations are staged.
Oh, you think the actual call itself was staged?
Yeah. Do you think it was staged?
No, now that you say it, yeah, it's possible.
I'm not fully convinced it was staged. Like, I think there were just some crazy radio callers in the heat of the moment. It could happen. All I'm saying is I know for a fact that there are a lot of calls in radio that are staged.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. No, I did not know that. I mean, definitely. I mean, there's definitely shows. I think there's definitely shows on TV like for instance, if you look at those like political town halls, there's 100% plants in the audience. You can just tell. But so it could have been something like that. But yeah, I think it was an over the top reaction, and there's a lot of reaction. Also, like, how could you like? I was listening to part of my take the other day, and they were reading out like Bleacher Report gave the Seattle Seahawks an F in the draft where they drafted Bobby Wagner and Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Gave them an F. So the draft, I think also would you agree with this? The draft grades are also some of the stupidest things ever.
Yeah.
How could you ever not? I mean, Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. Like the greatest player ever was Kurt Warner was undrafted. Like, how could you know that? The Jamarcus Russell was the #1 pick. By the way, did you hear that? You were talking about that Shedeur Sanders story real quick about the playbook. I heard a story the other day that when Jamarcus Russell was on the Raiders, the coaches gave him a DVD. This was back when DVDs, and they said, "Can you pick like 10 plays that you like on this DVD?" And he came back the next day and they were like, "What did you pick?" And he said, "I think all the plays are great. I can really run all of them." And the DVD was blank. There was nothing.
Yeah, I do know about that story. Yeah. He was too busy eating. All right, so that's our show for this week. This is Moving the Goalposts. I'm Nick DiMartino. That's Liam Barwick. You can follow me on Twitter at Nick DiMartino. You can follow Liam at LiamMTGP. And yeah, that's our show this week. I'll be back next week. See you guys then.